Hello everybody, welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today we're going to be talking about day number 1 of the Manchester Major. So already 4 best of 3s in the books, no teams yet eliminated, but as of tomorrow, we will see 4 teams already going home and 4 teams advancing into phase number 2 to join the 12 teams already waiting there. And before we get into the games, just a couple of things to talk about. First, you guys absolutely destroyed the like goal I set on that previous video of 200. It's at like 500 something now. And actually the 2 before that, they each have surpassed 200 as well. So really good stuff. I mean, I really appreciate when you guys like the video without the like goal, but I guess the like goal really worked out. I don't think I'll do that every video, but maybe in the near future, we'll try that again. And maybe I'll set a little bit more of a lofty goal and see if we can reach it there. But of course, I would love it if you would like this video and all future videos. Comment if you have anything to say, even if you just want to say thanks, love the videos, whatever. Or subscribing is also great, and subscribing I should say. Love the subscribers. Also follow me on Twitter and Twitch. Hopefully on Sunday I will be streaming the major, some amount of the major when it's going on, and then maybe the following weekend I'll do a little bit as well. And if you want to @ me on Twitter, or if you want to see what I have to say on Twitter, I'll probably send a few tweets here and there throughout the course of the major. Check those out. Those will be in the description. And the other thing I wanted to talk about, a couple of corrections from the previous videos, and I did make these corrections down in the comments, but you may not have seen them. And I feel the need to apologize because I tried to provide as much information and as much accurate information as I can in these videos, but I made a couple of mistakes that I feel pretty bad about. And the first one is I kept saying that all 4 of SSG, Bleed, Liquid, and G2 could not go together, not all 4 of them together, because of some inevitable matchups and some initial matchups. But I failed to account for a few scenarios, them being if SSG wins their first match and Bleed loses their first match, or vice versa. Meaning if Bleed wins their first one and SSG loses their first one. We've seen that not be the case. They both won, so now it is the case that all 4 of them will not be advancing, but I did make that mistake. There were certainly ways for all 4 of them to go through, even if it's not happening now. And then the second thing, and this hasn't become applicable yet, but might as well correct it while I'm making corrections, I did say that only the elimination games in phase number 2 would be best of 3s, but all elimination and advancement games. So if you are playing to go into phase number 3 or you are playing to go home, those are all best of 3s. So only a select number of the matches will actually be best of 1s. And those will be the games where teams are 0-0, 1-0, 0-1, or 1-1. So if there is a 2 anywhere in there, you're playing a best of 3. So if you're 2-1, 2-2, 1-2, you know, that sort of thing. Okay, and then of course, once you hit 3 losses, you're out, and once you hit 3 wins, you're advancing to top 8. So, okay, I think that's everything out of the way. Let's talk about the actual games that we saw today. First up, Bleed versus Cyclops, and this was happening simultaneously. They had 2 streams going, so the first 2 games were happening at the same time. The second 2 games were happening at the same time. More or less, some of the games lasted slightly longer than others. But okay, we'll start with this one, Bleed versus Cyclops. And I predicted Bleed to win this one pretty convincingly, and they did so as far as the map score went. But the first map actually went really close. This wasn't the one I was watching. I was watching the other one because I expected Bleed to sort of clean this one up. And I tuned into this one when they were up, I think 6-1, and I was like, okay, they're gonna win in the next handful of rounds. Yeah, they were up 6-1 after their first attack in round number 7. But then Cyclops wins 5 in a row, and even 6 in a row actually. They went up onto match point first. In overtime, they were 7-6, but then Bleed wins the last 2. So really close. Bleed almost choked this one away, and 6-1 lead is obviously great, but just say the 5-1 at the half. That's pretty standard for Skyscraper. If there's any map that you think, yeah, we can come back from this after your attacking half at a 1-5, it's certainly Skyscraper. Any other map, you're not going to feel too good about it. And I guess Skyscraper, you don't feel great, but you feel at least that you have a chance. And certainly Cyclops made it happen. This is a very defender-sided map. And then we go into Nighthaven Labs, and Bleed just demolishes them. And Cyclops even get the first round, so Bleed wins 7 of the next 8 rounds, and even round number 3 goes to Cyclops. So we see a big win streak here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 rounds in a row for Bleed to close out Nighthaven Labs and the series. putting them one match away from advancing. And I did expect them to get here. They are playing their upcoming match up against SSG. I predicted SSG to win that. We'll see. A lot of people did predict Bleed to win that one, so we'll get there when we get there. Reaps went crazy. Everybody knows this guy's a phenomenal fragger, and especially showing it in this game. And then Sharif, the standout on Cyclops. Black Gray getting demolished. 5 and 18 is tough. And with that, let's move on to the next game. I predicted Fear X to win this one. I didn't feel too strongly. This was like a coin flip for me. I didn't watch South Korea. I didn't watch MENA, which are the regions these two teams come from. And so I didn't have a good understanding of them. They were both at 6 Invitational, and they played each other, right? They were in the same group, and Fear X beat GK, and Fear X pretty much the same team, I think. I can't remember if Nova had come back onto the roster already then or not, but more or less same team. And GK did make a few changes. I think they changed their coach, they changed a few players out, so a little bit of a different team, and they needed a change. They got grouped at SI, and Fear X, yeah, they didn't get grouped. They at least made it out, but they didn't do especially well. So yeah, I went with Fear X, and I don't feel too bad about getting this one wrong considering how close it was. It was a 2-0, but it went round 15 in the first map, and it went max regulation in the second map. So both extremely close maps, and I mean, who knows what would have happened if Fear X had just won round number 15 rather than GK. Would they have gone on to win in map number 3? I don't know. But I mean, it was close however you slice it. And respectable game from Rin, Mephi, good boy. And over on GK, it was seriously the best player on the team by a good margin. Blaz was having a pretty good first map, and I think he had a little bit, not like a terrible second map, but not nearly as good, and that's why his stats didn't end up as phenomenal as seriously. But 8 and 4 on Blaz is impressive for the entry. Okay. Next up, Space Station versus Cruelty. We have the big one for last, that Liquid G2, which we're going to talk about in a moment. Yeah, I think this probably would have been my lock-in pick. This was the one that I would have been, this one or Bleed, I don't know, one of the two. I would have been really surprised for SSG or Bleed to lose either of them. And Cruelty, they put up a decent fight in the second map, but they got demolished on Bank 7-1. I guess this was one of the most decisive maps, not the only 7-1, not the only 7-1 on Bank we saw on the day. We'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, at least Cruelty was able to put up a good fight on Clubhouse. And this was pretty back and forth. I think it was SSG up 5-3, and then I think this is where Cruelty called their timeout, and then they win 2 rounds in a row, and then SSG Cruelty, so they push overtime, and they even have the advantage 7-6, but SSG, steely as ever, they pull out rounds 14 and 15 to win the map and win the series. And Forrest on top, don't see that too much, but J90 just barely right behind him. Only one having a bad game on SSG is Iconic. I don't think super concerning. They did win it 2-0, but he did have quite a few bad games in NAL, and now it's another not so good game. So we'll see if this continues. It is certainly something to be looked at. Pyrox, the star of the show over on Cruelty. Everybody else going negative, unfortunately. But what can you expect when you lose by a matter of like 7 rounds in 2 maps? And finally, we have G2 versus Liquid. And obviously, you know what happens because I'm showing it right now. But regardless of the score up here, you can go back and watch it. I guess I haven't showed the map, the round counts on the map, but I would really recommend going back and watching it. I think even after everything is said and done at this major, this will probably be one of the best series. I can't really imagine it'll be like the best series because the relatively low stakes, but just in terms of what happened in the match, really exciting stuff. And one thing to point out, we have Alamau up against Lagonis. Not the first time they've gone head to head, but these were both players on the Team 1 roster that won in Mexico, and Lagonis advances here to play against GK, where he will play another one of their former teammates from that team in Neskin. So cool little thing, and even cooler because hopefully I don't forget to mention this again. I'll tell you why once we get to the end. 7-4 for Liquid on Clubhouse. It's fairly close at the end, but Liquid did run it up at the beginning. 3 rounds in a row, looking pretty concerning for G2, and they do get the 1 round, but then Liquid get 2, so they're up 5-1. And like I was saying about Skyscraper, I think a 5-1 half, if you're attacking and you only get the 1 round, you don't feel too bad. But if you do that on any other map, Clubhouse included, you're not feeling great. So G2 not feeling too hot. And then Liquid, they get up to 6-1, just like we saw Bleed do against Cyclops, but they don't allow this to be pushed to overtime. G2 does get a few rounds, but then Liquid closes it out with a really impressive clutch by Palu. And then we move on to the second map, and it seems like G2's coming back. You know, they're heating up, because I think more people expected G2 to win this one. Do they have the prediction number on here somewhere? Yeah, according to voters on here, 2/3 of people thought G2 would win. And I don't know if I'd put it that close. I'd probably say I would have given G2 the edge like 55, 60%. I don't know if I'd say quite 2/3, but anyways, yeah, it looks like they're coming back into it, and maybe they'll go into the third map hot and beat Liquid relatively decisively. Obviously, that's not what happens, but yeah, they smoke them on Bank, and because of how decisive it was on Bank, G2 actually wins more rounds in the series than Liquid does. But unfortunately for G2, it is not about winning rounds. It is about winning 2 of the 3 maps. So you can get 7-0'd on one map, doesn't matter as long as you win the other 2. And let's take a look at what happens on Nighthaven Labs. Another really big, really good start from Liquid. They win 4 in a row, even better than they did on Clubhouse. But then G2 gets 2. So they don't even get put into the position of a 1-5 half. Now they got a 2-4, which is reasonable. Alamau with a big clutch here, 1v2 on Monte, and this was nice. But for most or all of the clutch, one of the players was already down. He was up against, so maybe slightly less impressive. I can't remember if he was the one that downed him in the 1v2 or not, though. And then G2, they continue to win rounds. So 4 rounds in a row, answering Liquid's 4 rounds in a row at the beginning. The score is now 4-4. Liquid get 2, but then 2 for G2 as well. They push overtime. G2 gets the first round, and now Liquid, it looks like maybe they're going to choke it all away. They had a pretty big lead in this map. They had a map lead in the series after Clubhouse. But no, they pull out round 14, and then Lagonis with the 1v2. It comes down to Alamau versus Lagonis in the 1v1. Alamau on the Blitz, Lagonis on the Bandit, and I think a little bit of a choke by Alamau, as he's known to do a little bit against Brazilian teams. Lagonis throws out a C4, Alamau runs away from it, but then he walks back into range of the C4, and Lagonis blows him up. I don't know why he did that. He had the diffuser. He could have gone elsewhere to plant, because that's when Lagonis threw the C4. He was already faking a plant. Alamau was. So I don't know. I don't know why he did it. He thought he was catching a Lagonis slipping, or he just made a colossal blunder, whatever the case. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think that's exactly what happened, right? Like, the C4 was still there, because that's what killed him. He must have known it was still there. Peculiar stuff. But Lagonis pulls it out, and a decent number of clutches, I think, in this series. Yeah, 3 for G2 and 2 for Liquid, and at least 3 of these were 1v2 or better. I'm not sure about the remaining 2. And more of the clutches even went to G2. And as you can see, G2 with much better stats across the board than Liquid. Even the lowest rated players on G2 similar to the highest rated players on Liquid, and you can chalk that up to the fact that Liquid, you know, they did win 2 maps, but like I was saying, G2 did win more rounds in the series, so of course they have better stats. It makes sense. But no, I mean, it's not about the stats, not about the rounds. It is about the maps at the end of the day, and Team Liquid pull it out. Definitely go back and watch this one. At least like the overtime on Nighthaven Labs was really exciting. But okay, let's move on, and finally we are going to take a look at the bracket, talk about just a few things. So these are the matches we just saw, and these are the matches that are set up. So SSG versus Bleed, I thought this would happen. My prediction stands. I'm going with SSG. Liquid versus GK, I thought this would be FearX versus G2. We actually see that in the lower bracket, and I had Liquid versus GK in the lower bracket. You know, these were switched, so I'm sticking with Liquid there. So I guess if my predictions come true, then it'll be SSG and Liquid advancing, and we will see all of the matches, so including the ones that aren't set up at all. So I'm going to go with, I guess, Cyclops over Cruelty, just to sort of stick to my original predictions, and G2 over FearX, and that would set up G2 up against Bleed. And I guess I'll go with G2. I had them originally qualifying up here, but I guess I'll have them qualifying down here. I don't know. I guess I would rather Bleed win in a sense. But if SSG's down here, I need SSG to win. Please don't go out in phase 1. But anyways, I'll have G2 over Bleed here. And then finally we have Cyclops up against GK. And I guess I'll stick with Cyclops. Again, I didn't really watch much of their game. But GK, they didn't look especially impressive. FearX and them, neither of them looked too good. It was a lot of mistakes on either team, and a lot of the rounds it felt like came down to who made fewer mistakes. And Cyclops, they at least ran one map close against Bleed, but again, I don't know. Did they look pitiful in map number 2? I guess by the scoreline they did, but in terms of their general play. So Anyways, that's what I'm gonna go with. One more time, I got Cyclops winning here, G2 winning here, Space Station winning here, Liquid winning here, and then Cyclops winning here and G2 winning here to qualify. And if I do get all of these right, I'll still get all of the teams I originally predicted to go through, but with G2 and Liquid switch in terms of who advanced through the upper bracket and who advanced through the lower bracket. And okay, I think that's gonna do it for me. I suppose tomorrow we'll maybe do a quick recap for those games, and then I'll maybe update my predictions, or maybe I'll do it in 2 separate videos. I'm not sure yet. Thank you for tuning in. If you've made it this point and you haven't liked, please do so. Please subscribe, please drop a comment, all that good stuff. Twitch and Twitter are, of course, in the description, and I will catch you guys next time.